Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another session of Titan Talks on our scheduled day, Saturday mornings. It is the way to start your weekend. Today, we are speaking with Sergio Pengel out of Suriname, PiData, the name of his company. But before we jump into that, we must have our lovely intro. Let's speak about the laws. So they are disputed, undisputed 12 laws that govern the universe. One of them is a law of compensation. So it says, you get paid in direct proportion to the amount of value that you create. Your financial success is directly related to the size of the problem you solve for the other people. So Elon Musk popularized this law, and we all think that it was generated from him. Certainly not. He just simply understands the power and is able to utilize the law. And I think that is what we want to jump into today, the understanding of these laws to actually create successes, right? So the bigger your organization, the bigger your responsibilities, the bigger your challenges, it's simple, the bigger your paycheck. Food for thought. Chris, you'll jump in and basically get us started with Sergio.
Yes, so Sergio Pengel, founder of PiData, he is an experienced international business consultant that specializes in technology solutions, e-commerce, and big data. He tries to solve certain problems, for example, citizen-centric solutions, specifically disaster management and emergency communication. Also, he has a keen interest in artificial intelligence, facial recognition, and augmented reality. Most importantly, his passion is in helping other entrepreneurs accelerate their growth through digital innovation, commercialization at various scales. So without further ado, we welcome Sergio Pengel to Titan Talks. So welcome here today, Sergio. You have to unmute yourself. Yes.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Sergio. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. Melissa, I really appreciate you having me on here on Titan Talks. I'm super excited to really kind of join this conversation. I've seen a few videos of some amazing speakers that went before me. So I will definitely do my best to make sure that we deliver on that level even higher so that we can kind of make sure that your audience really gets some good information out of this video. So thank you so much, Christopher, for that introduction.
Yes. So the first question I would ask you is what, you obviously, that was a high level introduction, but what does PiData, and I hope, or PiData, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, you got it
What
right.
do you guys do? Okay, PiData.
Yeah,
what do you guys do?
So in order to kind of tell you what PiData is, to kind of give you a story about how we got started. I was born in Suriname, South America, and I've been living in the United States for the past 20, 30 years. But during that time, I did my undergrad and my graduate here, really played college football here, had a phenomenal career in just kind of building and being a young man and kind of taking up that university level. And then postgraduate, I started looking at going into the real world, like most of you all, kind of considering what pathway to take on for my career. And lo and behold, after traveling and being on the road all the time through school and university and football, I took a break for like a few months, and I went back home after being here in the United States for so many years. And that's when the aha moment happened. When going home, I realized that we have some of the most beautiful countries in the Caribbean, but we lack infrastructure. We lack certain key principles that really help us advance or partake in real world solutions. So I started a startup. My first startup was in the payment space, a Geogram. I remember like it was yesterday. I was super excited. I had the first Square payments, swipe card payment systems, branded them, got them out of China. Just really kind of like started an entrepreneur journey and launched it in the Caribbean. and had a few clients, really was trying to kind of get in and kind of get into the wrong hands. And I got that email that says, hey, listen, you're not accredited. You don't have all these institutions. You can't even do this, right? It's, if you keep continuing to do remittances, you're going to kind of get in trouble doing that.
And locked up and gone to prison, jail, straight to jail.
Yes. So the question I wanna ask you there. So you start this first company, and it's something that I'd mentioned to Melissa before when we first started. There's this idea of resistance, right? Resistance to gaining some sort of traction to the pathway. So talk to us about that resistance. So you get this wall, and you're about to say, all right, you could stop.
Yes.
But you decide to forge ahead. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was one of those things where you realize you're at the break dealing with beyond your goal. And one of the things that I learned really closely early on in that is that entrepreneurs break things fast and apologize later. But then when you're dealing with jurisdictions, you're having to kind of abide by certain protocols and laws. Otherwise, you're subjective to breaking the law. So there's a kind of fine line between those two. But I quite frankly continued for a little while. But I did it where I started focusing on a jurisdiction that I could engage with, right? So I started partnering up with a company here who kind of did, who established a streaming music platform for artists to be able to kind of upload their content, distribute it on the application, and be able to download it directly. And that was like my deviation from not stopping completely in the Caribbean, but starting to look at different avenues on how to provide more legs and more capital in order to sustain a model from a payment space. And shortly after, the team grew. We had about 2.5 on the cap table, had a bunch of investors, Sony on the table. I mean, I was that entrepreneur in 2004, 5, 2006, that was like, yeah, we're gonna exit,
I have a question for you. Yeah. Were you experiencing the hubris effect then? You feel like you're the top of the world.
I was like, I'm gonna tell you how humbling this experience was. Uh-huh. I would tell my wife, look, don't bother me. We're gonna do this. We're about to get rich. Leave me alone. We're at the brink of it. I would, my kids, I would be here, but I wouldn't be here. I spent all my savings. I took my rent money, put it in there. I mean, it was that time when I was really like dedicated, and I saw it. I mean, I was meeting every single week with investors who were doing the due diligence, who were essentially like, look, I want to be part of this. We'll sign agreements. They're committed to, investing. There wasn't not one doubt that this wasn't going to work. I mean, I was talking to Sony executives who won the acquisition. So to answer your question, Melissa, I was on cloud 20, really just knowing that this was my exit. This was my strategy. This is the company that's going to be all be it.
So I wanna ask you there, right? So, obviously there's this aspect, and it seems that at that point in time, you were well on your way to getting through that initial resistance, and you were being fearless in your journey.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what is I suppose you're gonna tell us what actually happened. So I'm excited to hear that piece of it. But what is I want to hear what the tipping point actually was, that kind of pushed you to one side or the other.
The tipping point was partnerships. The tipping point was transparency in partnership. So because I partnered with a third party who had a music streaming solution and I had a payment side already, we partnered, got the investors in the table. The investors are doing the due diligence. And here's a good question, Christopher, you asked. One of the questions one of the tech investors asked consistently during our meetings were the IP ownership and rights of the streaming solution, right? This was the first time I learned about intellectual property. right? I'm a new guy. I knew about IP, but when it comes to code, right, and formulation, I learned later on that my co-founder licensed a solution, packaged it as if it was hers, and presented that as a patented technology.
Wait, so that was white label? She white labeled it?
She basically beyond white labeled it. She took a platform with that didn't belong to her, made it hers by packaging it.
Yeah, wow.
It's an infringement. It's an infringement.
Ouch.
And
yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny now. I didn't tell you, it's like, so my background is engineering, but I'm an attorney at law now,
Oh, wow.
So
nice.
Yeah. So the thing is that I always, it's interesting, obviously, talking to parties around understanding what what a patent is, right? Or what, or what a copyright is, or what a trademark is. So basically what she did is like, she put a sticker onto something, to a Mercedes-Benz, and told you it was hers.
Exactly.
It's like, this is mine.
Exactly. Yeah. And you wouldn't, I'm gonna tell you, a trained eye wouldn't know. And this is the secret part, I think, what your audience really need to get this. When you're dealing with technology, it has different layers of ownership or infrastructure.
Yes.
In those different layers, there are some things that are open source, that means available to the public and anybody can use it. Mm-hmm. And there are some things that are essentially are copyright or patented technology or intellectual property that someone owned and registered as owners. Mm-hmm. If you take that, you are subjected to pay them a licensing fee to essentially utilize this technology unless otherwise stated by the owners. In this event, this owner or this partner of mine didn't go through the proper protocol of doing so. Thus, when the investment came into part of truly acquiring this technology, during the due diligence process, they have to declare all the components of those layers. One of those components, the key component, was owned by someone else who didn't subject to the license agreement or wanted to have a bigger stake in what it was, which diluted our equity significantly of ownership to the point where it became a problem for the investors to see an ROI on their investments. So now we're on the cap table having discussions about, are you being honest to me, or do you really own this?
Now we're speaking about trust. Once you break trust, that's it. That's a no-go.
It's done.
That's a no-go.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, this is a Friday. On Friday, we have a meeting because on Monday we're signing the contracts.
Yeah.
On Monday, I'm a millionaire on paper. Yeah. And on Friday, and I remember like it's just yesterday. I'm meeting, I won't call it anything. I'm meeting with so-and-so, I'm meeting with an investor, meeting with so-and-so investor. And they're looking at me saying, Serge, I get you now, but like, we're having a concern with this partner of yours, right? Like, we did our due diligence. They're saying this, but we're looking at this. And the conversation became so toxic of like, is this person declaring everything? Because if she would have just declared it, like, yeah, I licensed it from somebody, like this is how much I own, they would have been like, all right, let's just pay them off or incorporate it, negotiate, let's move on. But because of that, they started to pull back. So one investor is like, yeah, that's not for me. I don't get to do this. And other investors was there like, you know what? I'll wait. Me, right. I simply said, you know what, guys? I invested thousands of dollars into this. I brought 2 investors to the table. I spent my life savings. I just told my wife, I just got in an argument with my wife, over this for months. And I'm dealing here with someone that I can't even trust anymore. Mm. So I literally meditated, prayed, and after a few conversations of like trying to pry with this co-founder, I said, you know what?
I'm done.
I'm done. I'm gonna walk away. Now,
Yeah.
it was a hard walk away because I walked away with everything that I invested into this company. But here's the caveat to this story. I had $1,200 left into my name, my last rent payment. And I'm gonna tell you this story because it's radical and stupid, but it is an entrepreneur's story. I define myself as a true entrepreneur. I haven't worked for someone in the past 8 to 9 years, right? Meaning I only eat what I kill, right? And because of that, when I was faced with adversity and I had only $1,200 to my name, you know what I did with that money? Well, at that time, my godmother, who was actually working in the telecommunications space in the Caribbean, and the week prior to that, I called her, telling her, "Listen, I'm coming down there to launch this really platform. We just raised $2.5 million. We're coming down there and present it." And this is Canto, right? The local organization down there in Trinidad, right? I'm coming down there and presenting it to all the telecom. We're gonna expand this. You know, Caribbean artists will be able to put stuff. I've been ready. So she calls me a week before the event. "Are you still coming? You know, we put you on the board. I mean, on the list, on the panel to present, exactly." And I'm faced with this just happened. I just walked away from the company, and now I'm going to try to go present something that I know I'm not going to do. So I told my wife, "You know what, hey, honey, I'm sorry, but I just bought us tickets to Trinidad." So I spent my last money, and I didn't know how to make it up to my wife because and I'm saying this because this is real true. Like, rough road right there. She's like, "This guy is crazy. I can't deal with this. We're just 2 years into the marriage. I'm radical at this point, right?"
Yeah.
But I bought those tickets to Trinidad, and you know what? We went to Trinidad on a Canto event. You know, this was actually in the Bahamas, not in Trinidad. This was actually in the Bahamas. Yeah. Canto was in Trinidad. We went to the Bahamas. My first time in the Bahamas, Canto event, and I'm in the crowd. I'm about to go on stage, and I'm sitting in the crowd, asking myself, "Sergio, I'm an overly transparent person, right? So I can't go on stage and say, yeah, we had this new idea, this technology, knowing the bag that didn't happen." So on the spot, I decided to change my mind. And I went on there and I shared my story of how I overcame my first startup and how entrepreneurs in the Caribbean are having the same problem and how we should work together. In fact, Canto worked with telecommunication organizations to bring together some of the best to work to solve problems. What if we work with developers, young entrepreneurs, to bring them together to solve the same problems? Because we're usually left outside of the room. This is what I've learned while sitting in the crowd, seeing people speak.
So this is the formation of PiData right there.
This is how PiData was born.
Pivot champion.
He had his own COVID.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to interject here, right? So I actually saw I think Nipsey Hussle. He passed away a few years, like 2 years yesterday. And there was a quote about him. And he said, Nipsey Hussle said to Vibe Source, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." You know, so I first time I read it, I was like, what on earth are they talking about that? I thought I was a man of philosophy. I think back to Socrates and Plato. Melissa knows this because I quote them all the time. Yes. And then I read that from Nipsey and I'm hearing your story. Yes. And you're like, yo, there was a little bit of, you know, it's like, have you really lived, unless it is that you have a little bit of a drop of madness. And that was a madness moment. You're like, hey, what? I have this $1,200. It's like, screw it, man. I'm betting on myself.
You know,
I love that.
Entrepreneurship is like that. You have
Yes.
to believe in yourself, in your imagination, only what you see, because only you are going to see it. And then maybe years later, the rest of the world will partake in that vision that only you had. You have to be mad.
Yes.
You gotta be stupid crazy with my wife. She's stupid crazy. But it's absolutely unequivocally right. And I tell people this because not to try to show, you know, what it's really like, is to that I faced that same decision over and over and over in my career, right?
Yes.
It started, my first one was there. So the audience who's listening to this, right? If you're at a space where, you know, I tell people all the time, get a job and work, right? Don't become an entrepreneur. Don't do it. And I say, like, why do you say that? So you're entrepreneur. I say that because it's really, honestly, not a smart move for anybody to do. However, if you can't live without that mentality, if something inside of you says, you know, I can't do this, and you're willing to die for it, then you can be an entrepreneur. Because you're going to be faced with that same decision of, should I put my last in this one basket? Because I really believe and I'm willing to fail, die trying. And I'm going to tell you another story of that in a minute. I'm willing to fail, die trying of that, or am I going to continue to play it safe, right? Because I know that at least I could have taken that $1,200 and paid my rent for the month, right? And then I would have been like, okay, you know, I have a rent for the month and I gotta go and get a job and work and do it again, which is cool. Nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's nothing wrong. I want to make sure to tell people it's nothing wrong with it. Don't feel bad because you made the smart decision to cover yourself. It's nothing wrong with it. However, if you are a radical, crazy, stupid person, an entrepreneur that it says, you know what, I'm willing to die for this.
Yes, Sergio, you're mirroring a guy who I love on social media, and you're most probably the Caribbean Gary Vaynerchuk. You know, Gary V.
That's key right there. Gary is the key. No, but you're right though. It's that. I love Gary. The reason why I love Gary is because Gary goes over the success principles of understanding what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the Caribbean, you don't have that luxury, right? Of that. Honestly, I understand that too, right? I have that luxury somewhat here is because I'm an entrepreneur. I started off being an entrepreneur selling honey buns, Capri Suns, and hot fries in high school, right? I would go to Sam's Club, buy a bunch of snacks and candy, and be in class selling them, making $100, $200 every period. So I understood how to flip, you know, how to do supply and demand early on. So I'm not afraid to go out there and make it, right? I know how to make money, which is essentially a skill set that you learn by failing and not having anything, and you have to figure it out.
Yeah, wow,
right?
Okay.
So PiData was born. And I'm gonna tell you how PiData was born. PiData was born because Canto had this young man named William Mahler, who they invite an ICT guy every year, who won a video recording, who says, hey, how ICT is gonna impact my country and everything, right? And so I saw William from Belize on stage crushing it, right? This young man, 16, 17 years old, crushing it. It was then when I said to myself, who, you know, a favorite saying from one of my guys, Grant Cardone, right? It was my favorite guys, right? He's another radical guy that I love. He said, who has my money? He always says, who has my money? And I love that saying is because when you look at that, you don't look at money as a digital asset. You look at money as a resource of people. People have your money, right? Even if you have the money, you can't spend it without people. So essentially is identifying individuals who are in alignment with your vision and supporting that in a collaborative manner. I went to William and said, William, hey man, congratulations on these awards. You did amazing. I love what your story, la. What happens next? And William looks at me and said, I don't know. I mean, this is I made it. I won. And that's when I said, aha, okay, we got something here. Literally, I went to 8 other people. And asked
the same question.
asked the same questions. They had different objectives, right? One of them was a videographer. Another one was a youth person that worked with Canto. And I asked them to say, hey, what happens next? And they're like, that's it. Every year they have this event. I said, listen, we should do our own thing so that when we come next year, we can have more value to provide for these individuals who are making decisions for us. Okay, I'm interested. Went back to the drawing board, put up a business plan together, right? I've failed in the past. I've been successful in the past. So doing it again, here's another thing, utilizing some of my failure points to implement, but the good things to implement into this new system was phenomenal. Guess what? A month or two later, we're presenting to the board our idea. The next year, they gave us an opportunity to come to Cantor and present. This is now in Suriname, the next event next year. So now my first granular launch just happened to be in my home.
It's home, bro. The thing is, as in, when it is that you is in it's the alchemists like Paulo Coelho, as in you put like this intention into the universe, and then the universe conspires for you. As in, I love that aspect. I really got that from the book. As in, you put these things in and you're thinking that they're failures because you thought that initial idea was Mecca, but you were thousands of miles off. That was not your destination.
Yes.
So they turned you away from that shop and you're like, no, it's not here that you're supposed to be.
Yes.
You're supposed to be elsewhere. So I absolutely love that aspect of the journey that you just described to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, it was that Chris, you're absolutely correct. It's those, whatever you're doing now may not be the one all be all thing, but it's gonna prepare you for the next step in your life. They're all related to each other, so there is no experience wasted. There is no experience wasted. It's always applicable to the next phase of your life. It's either going to learn from your failure or you're going to learn from your failure. One of the two, right? Because that's the only option you have is to learn from it, essentially, right? If you're going to continue to move forward. It's only a failure if you stop, right? Okay. If I would have quit at that first, cap table, which ruined my mindset at that time, I was depressed, literally, right? If I would have stopped, none of this would have ever happened. When I say none of this, we went to 8 countries doing hackathons with government officials from Bahamas to in Miami to Suriname to Trinidad. We went to different islands and worked with the telecommunication companies there to build solutions. We've processed over thousands of entrepreneurs and developers, right? We've actually had 8 hackathons across the region where we've provided opportunities for startups who are now having their own companies, who are now running their own startups, right? Who got invested in their companies. Why? Because they got the level of exposure. They were able to come in and build doing a hackathon and present to telecom companies. We spent time teaching them how to pitch, right? How to build a solution. All that stuff, a gentleman by the name of E.J. Saunders out of Turks and Caicos, right? Was our first investor, DDS, right? One of the first people who believed in the vision, still believes in the vision, funded these hackathons every single year, right? Provided tens of forums for this. And I'm gonna tell you how the story goes. During this process, I myself didn't know how to build solutions fully, applications fully. I had my first one that I hired an Indian team to do it with, right? My payment solution. So I had to learn, hanging around these hackers, how to build an idea in 3 days. How to build, let's say I want to build an app for a bus system in Trinidad. How to track buses hint, how to track buses who are coming and moving from one point A to point B. If I want to do that in a short period of time, I would do a hackathon where I find 2 developers, 2 designers, and 2 business people, put them in a room for 2-3 days, only food and drink. They can't leave. That means they're in there day in and day out, all day. And all they're doing is they're going from a business canvas model all the way to a monetization model and building an application based on research and development and present it in an MVP, a minimum viable product. And guess what? That model of hackathons year after year, I learned that, you know what? It really doesn't need to cost $100,000 to build an application. In fact, if you have $100,000 to build an application, I won't invest all of it in it because I can only spend $5,000 on the application, get to my MVP, test it, get some user feedback, and only invest where the money leads me.
Only invest where the money leads you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that is.
Go right in.
That's a goal. That's a goal. So I know that I regret to say this, but I know we're at 30 minutes right now, and I absolutely love the conversation. I see there's a lot of things that I learned in this half an hour. I think it's absolutely immaculate, So Sergio, if you see a LinkedIn request from Christopher George, I hope that you you keep that in your yeah, I think it was a great the question I asked, and I'm going to let Mel finish up after this. But what is a book that you suggest? I ask every single one of our speakers, what is a book that you suggest that we should read?
My favorite one for startups is Eric Ries, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Okay.
Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
All right.
Break Things Fast is another one. I forgot the author's name. I bought it a few years ago. But for me, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is my favorite book. For anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur or start a business, I highly recommend you read that book twice. Why twice? It's because once you read it the first time and you go and take action, you're gonna say, "Oh, this is amazing." Once you take action and you come back and read it again, it's gonna be like, "Oh, now I understand why I did this and why I should have done that," and la la. And that's gonna really help you move forward. So Eric Ries and The Lean Startup.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, Mel.
Right.
You're muted again.
Oops. One thing to close off. You must become the person of value to receive anything of value. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, I love that saying. You must become a person of value in order to receive anything of value. There's another one that I like to emphasize with, that I tell myself all the time, or tell myself all the time. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Right? That's one of my favorite sayings, similar to that. And why I say that is that value is either given or created, right? And when you're giving value, that means you're sharing what you already have or experience inside. When you're creating value is when you're taking action by doing or taking action by doing what you think is right as best, and learning key characteristics, key fundamentals from that creates your value or what you feel as valuable to yourself. When you're sharing or giving that value, it comes from a place of substance, right? You can't be empty sharing it to third party. So because it comes from a place from substance, the person receiving it must be open to receive it. Otherwise, it's not value. It is essentially information that is not there. So when the student is ready, meaning you are a certain threshold, you are open, you have a mindset that says, I am ready to receive, I'm ready to get to the next level of my life. So I'm gonna learn information, open to receive information at a certain level. Then and only then you'll be able to apply or get the information that you're listening to and perceive it as value in order to take action in your life. So that's my mantra. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
All right. Just on a last note, you are the second one of our speakers that have talked about that book, The Lean Startup. I think I'm putting it into my my reading library right now. I'm searching on my app right now. It's like I think again, when the student is ready, you know, I need to be ready to receive that information. So, you know, they keep putting it out there. So I'm going to follow your direction, you know, and our speaker before, she did say the exact same thing. So I'm going to follow her direction and say, I need to read that book. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much, Sergio.
Before you leave, I want to just say
yes.
this interview team and panel makes a huge difference
yes.
in really getting substance or value. And I just enjoyed your questions, enjoyed your energy. I can see why Melissa is really kind of working with some phenomenally strong individuals like yourself. And I'm really thinking that you're going to be able to take this and utilize this platform to really not only grow for yourself, but be impactful for entrepreneurs and businesses like myself. So
yeah,
thank you.
wow. Thanks a lot, Sergio. And I want to thank you, Melissa, for even, you know, going out that day and having the conversation with me. So
it's all about action, as we have said over and over. You know, it's like building the plane while you're flying it and having the balls to know that you will land.
I like that. I definitely like that. I like that. Yeah.
All right, guys. I thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. All right.
Have a wonderful day, guys.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.